Aloha mai kako. Welcome to the Music Within, our podcast focused on dignity, beauty, and truth. We are recording here in the lovely Honolulu, Hawaii, at the Holy Family Life Office. Mahalo for joining us today. My name is Majesty Keahi Domingo, founder of Hamaui Local Foundation, a nonprofit whose vision is to uphold human dignity and build a culture of family. We've been gathering in our home since 2007, executing these, little mini classes and delving into the ideas about our sexuality. And it has been so revealing to us. We've learned so much. And so we're really glad to be able to be sharing some of those ideas with you tonight. And of course, I'm joined by the beautiful Jimena Suarez, my co-host of The Music Within.
Thank you, Maile, and hi, everyone. And well, my name is Jimena Suarez, and I'm from Ecuador and moved to Hawaii last year. And my organization is Ama la Vida, which means Love Life. And it's an organization that takes care of the life of the unborn and especially their environment. We started in 2017 back in Puebla, Mexico, and we were giving conferences about the dignity of life. We had radio programs back there. We broadcast live and family events, and we also support pregnant women under vulnerable conditions. So when you start working in the pro-life movement, sometimes women, they start saying, yes, I'm going to say yes to life. And so that's been our last effort to be with these women in this adventure also for them to say yes to life. And also, I'm a fertility care practitioner of the Creighton model system. So it's natural family planning. And today, in the first part of our podcast, we always share some news. And we are continuing right now here in Honolulu praying outside Planned Parenthood, even though the campaign of 40 Days for Life is over. But we have a small group of volunteers that they said, okay, the campaign is over, but unfortunately, abortions are still happening every Tuesday, Wednesdays, and Saturdays. So it's been so interesting after the campaign to be there, because every Tuesday, if you're listening to me and you feel some Tuesday that, oh, I would like to go and check that out, how's this experience, on Tuesdays at 11, we go there, and every week has been something different. And we had one day, it was so random, I wanted to share this with you, because we just arrived there, we were walking with my friend, and in the driver, there was a car entering Planned Parenthood, and we weren't even praying yet. We were just with our bags, with rosaries, and we just saw the car, and I said wait, you have other options. We're here for you. You can keep your baby. And it was a guy with his girlfriend, and he was so confused because he was trying to push the button to enter the parking place, and some lady was screaming at him, but he was shocked, and he was staring at me, and I continued you have other options, you can keep your baby, we're praying for you. But it was like a coincidence, we were there and the car was entering the place, and okay, we just started praying the rosary. 10 minutes after, the guy came out. For me, that was truly a miracle. And it was the first time that something like that happened to me. He was oh, I'm interested in what you told me. Can you tell me more about that? And I was so surprised, because sometimes you just feel like a crazy lady. You're screaming at the people entering the Planned Parenthood, because sometimes they are even rude. So you kind of start getting used to saying that, and then he's oh, I'm really interested. Can you tell me more about that? And I was oh yeah, here the baby. We had a sample of a thing we call baby, and we told him everything about the dignity of life, and that it was his baby, that he has the right, he's the father, and that he had so much confusion in his head that because even counselors, the counselor told them that he should respect the girlfriend decision. And he was paying for the abortion, even though he didn't agree. So I always remember like what Miley said about men. They also have a word on this, you know. They also are affected by this. So I remember that. So we were trying to empowering him, but you realize that men, they don't have a word in this pro-life issue. And when you're with them there, like you could like I felt so bad for him, because like he was like, no, it's her decision, I'm here to pay for it. And like and I was like, no, that you're intimidated, you don't have to pay for it. Even if she decides that, like, you don't have to pay for it. And you can leave this place now. And if she wants to pay for the abortion, then she's gonna have to find the resources. But tell her to come outside. We're waiting for her. And she was actually Mexican, so we gave her like a medal in Spanish. So we're like, try to talk to her. We're here for her. But so that was different. Like, we never heard from him again, unfortunately. But we got his phone, and I think, well, the learning, the learning part of this is that always scream at cars with the entrance to Planned Parenthood. Even if think you're not ready, just tell them you have that option. Because one day a guy is gonna come out, and one day that guy is gonna say, I want to keep my baby. So
I think that's very key, Jimena. I mean, we might seem like crazy ladies yelling at people, but truth be told, men have an immense power to impact the life of the unborn. They have an immense power to support women who are pregnant, even though they didn't plan it, / didn't realize their actions would have this consequence. But men can impact the future of these children. But I think what is even more important is us yelling at them is sort of shaking them on their shoulders and saying, you have dignity. You have the utmost value, and your voice, we want to recognize, you know, and to help empower men and help them know that they're not just sperm donors. They are a person giving their personhood to another person, a woman. And together, those two persons have created another person. That is the theology of our bodies. We are meant to speak and give our bodies to each other, so much so that its power creates life. And if that young man by chance hears this podcast, we want you to know that we know you, and that we see you, and that we recognize your absolute value. And, you know, your journey along the way reveals to you who you are. And you absolutely can stand up for the life that you maybe love already, but you're afraid. And we're here to empower you.
Thank you. And well, yeah, so the call to action for this story is that please continue praying at home, even if you don't have the call maybe to go outside all the time or anything, but your prayers are important. I think these prayers are touching hearts for sure. And also get involved in some pro-life movement, even join on Facebook to a pro-life group and just share the news. It doesn't take, it doesn't have to be so much effort, but I think like small efforts from many people, they can make the difference. And I wanted to share also a good news that, as you know, I was living in Puebla for 7 years before coming here, and they were trying to pass abortion. So that was something that it was very close to my heart, because there is a big pro-life movement there, but you know that these powers are huge, and we're so small against all of this. And so from April 5th to the 20th, they were discussing this at the parliament. And I was telling Maile, besides the show, that all these friends, they were the 40 Days for Life people. They actually moved the campaign outside the parliament. so there are many crazy people out there. And they moved the campaign, and they decided that they are going to do 365 days vigil. But But during this time of the parliament, they move outside. So the politicians probably, they were like, why they are praying at our door? But they were there, and many people that I know, they were talking at the parliament about the pro-life movement and defending life. And so many rosaries prayed by other groups. There was so much going on. And the good news, and that tomorrow they are going to meet to pray a rosary, thanking God because the law didn't pass. So praise God for that, and for all the people that eventually, all these social movements, they have a result, even if the powers are very strong and sometimes it looks against us. So that's why it's my call to action, that just join in some way, wherever you are, here in Honolulu or wherever you're listening to us. Mm-hmm.
Awesome. Super exciting. Any victory for life, we are excited about. And so we get to move on to today's show. And our theme, actually, for this session and the next 3 sessions is actually dating. We're going to be examining the different levels or boxes of dating, an intentional mindset regarding dating, and some examples of what it's like to be in the dating zone, field, journey, whatever you want to call it. Today we have an exceptional guest appearance by a young man by the name of Bryan Keahi Domingo. No bias here. But in my opinion, he is one of the best communicators on relationship from a theology of the body perspective. And I think it's been remarkable because theology of the body or any other theology are just words on a page. But how are they demonstrated? You know, how are they lived out? Theology of the body are words that were spoken by Pope John Paul II from the 1979 to 1983. And those words were transcripted to paper, and today we get to read them and see its wisdom. But still, just words on a paper. But what the Holy Father invited us to was this idea that we can live out these principles in our kind of messy human way and figure out its truth. He calls that phenomenology. And I had the great privilege of observing this young man live out the principles of the theology of the body in and through his body by the decisions and mistakes that he made along the way. And so Jimena and I would like to welcome him to our show. Aloha.
Hi, everyone. Wow, with an introduction like that, I guess I better not suck, huh? It's so great to be here with you all, and thank you for allowing me to come and share and have a chat with you guys and your audience as well.
So maybe just to help the audience understand your perspective, tell us a little bit about where you come from and your story.
So I grew up hearing theology of the body, learning about it, and for those of you who are on this journey of studying theology of the body and the work of Pope John Paul II, a lot of you guys are thinking probably much that the way I did growing up was, hey, this all sounds great, like the theories and the words behind it, but how does that actually apply to my dating life? How does that apply to my day to day? And more importantly, how do I form my choices around these words and this understanding that Pope John Paul leads us through? So my kind of hope is for coming on here is to just share some of my experience, right? Nowadays life hacks are so popular, right? But I kind of want to come on here and share with you guys some of my life hacks, but I'm not going to be teaching you how to, get the most out of a paper clip or use how to reuse an old t-shirt. It's life hacks. It's life. It's things that really matter in our life, like dating. So I'm hoping to share a couple of things that will, maybe for those of you listening, those of you who are in the dating scene, will help you kind of guide your choices in ways that will lead you to having successful relationships. So anyways, that's what I'm here for, and that's my hope for today with all of you guys.
Awesome.
Before I talk about that, I guess I should share a little bit about me. I'll share the short version. I was 18 when I finally told this girl that I liked her. We stayed friends for 2 years, however. We didn't date. We finally dated after that 2-year kind of waiting period. We dated for 1.5 years, and then we were engaged for 8 months. We've been married for almost. We'll be married 4 years next week, and then we just had our first baby 5 months ago. So it's been quite an amazing journey, and I've learned a lot. I've made a lot of mistakes along the way. Now, my wife, Ashley, she was the first and only girl I ever dated. And, when I tell people our story, I usually get one of two responses, right? I either have people say, wow, you guys are so lucky, or they say, oh, you guys are some kind of weird fairy tale, but I'm not sharing that today to brag or anything. I'm sharing it with you because it worked. I know it worked because the things that I've done and the choices that I've made and more importantly, the thinking behind the choices that I made, it worked. And it worked for me, and I know it can work for you. So what did we want to go over first? Should we...
Well, I really love the ideas that you bring forth in terms of a successful relationship, because I remember the first time you talked about it, I was like, it doesn't feel successful.
Yeah.
So I was shocked that you called it successful relationships. And so I wanted to ask you to sort of define what makes a successful relationship.
Right. So I learned a lot from people who had successful relationships. So that's your first tip is if you're learning from people who have relationships, you're going to learn what kind of relationships they have. So if they have successful relationships, you'll learn successful relationships. If they have unsuccessful relationships, then you'll learn unsuccessful relationships. Now one of the main reasons people are either struggle with relationships or are afraid of relationships is because most people don't even know what a successful one looks like. Unfortunately today, unless you grew up around a successful one, you just wouldn't know what it looks like. So one of the things that I tell people is, find out what are the parameters of a successful relationship. Right? We're all, and as we learn through Theology of the Body, we're all, designed and we're all called to relationship, right? We're not meant to be alone. However, if you ask the modern world, what is the parameters of a successful relationship, the modern world will say, it's a relationship that maybe makes you feel good or makes you happy or, maybe looks good on Instagram, right? Unfortunately, the default parameter that many people fall back onto is simply just being in a relationship. If you're in a relationship, you're successful. If you break up, it's a failure. That's what the modern world says, right? If you watch celebrities, if you watch TV shows, right? Just being in a relationship equals successful. And it's kind of like, wow, if the bar was already on the ground, you brought a shovel. That's a really low bar. So for me, it's kind of like, let's raise the bar. Let's find out what the standard should be and start from there.
Wow,
so
that's huge. That perspective of understanding what a successful relationship could be defined as, and to help us pull ourselves out of the social media moment and bring new light and new ideas to what is a successful relationship. And I was thinking as you spoke that, gosh, growing up in school, going to college, and just being in the office, when people are talking about their relationships, oftentimes it's viewed and spoken about in the prism of failure.
Right.
So bring a little bit more clarity to that. What is successful in your eyes? Okay,
well, remember in Theology of the Body, right, our the purpose of our relationships is to guide us towards God, right? We're meant to be in union with God. So here's how I like to define the parameters of success, right? We ask this question. We say, has this relationship helped me to discern the direction of my life? I'll say that again. Has this relationship helped me to discern the direction of my life? So if the relationship helps draw us closer to God and allows us to help other people get closer to God, that's the question. If the relationship does that, then that's a good relationship. If it doesn't, then what's the point? Right? Our purpose is for union. Our purpose is for the ultimate union with God. So we need to start on kind of a level one when we're developing our relationships, especially our dating life. So when it comes to dating, in other words, that just says, does God want for me to continue to date and potentially marry this person? Right? If the purpose of dating is to lead us towards marriage, then that is the question that we're asking. So if the answer is yes, I am supposed to continue dating and potentially marry this person, then the dating relationship is successful. Now, guess what? If the answer is no, and we've discerned together that we're not meant to continue dating and not meant to potentially marry this person, then once again, the dating relationship has been successful, which is a really beautiful thing. So it takes a relationship and turns it into a win-win scenario when viewed from this standpoint, right? Because the ultimate purpose is, as I said, to draw us closer to God.
This is really huge because most people, myself included, enter into relationships sort of with this fairy tale, harebrained idea that it is supposed to end in marriage.
Right.
But dating is the discernment of identifying, is this my life partner? So you bring into clarity the idea that actually the question is answered.
Yeah.
That might not be my life partner.
And more than that, it's is this the life partner that God wants me to have?
Yeah.
Right. Mm-hmm. And I think young people get hung up on the cliche of people telling them, oh, just make sure that, you're in your relationship with God is good and make sure that you have that good. And it does not kind of sound cliche, but if you don't do that, how are you supposed to know? How are you supposed to know if God wants this person to be, your life partner if you don't have a relationship with God? So it does sound a little, and it sounds a little bit like, okay, yeah, I've heard that a million times, right? All the young people, raise your hand. I've heard that a million times, right? But how are you supposed to know otherwise, right? If it's not based on whether your relationship with God lets you know that this is the person that you're meant to marry, then you're stuck with trying to decide, oh, I guess it feels good. Maybe that's what I'm supposed to do, purely because it feels good. So the beauty about asking yourself this question along the way of your relationships is, if you quantify successful relationships this way, then you can have many good and successful relationships as you grow into the person you're supposed to be for your future spouse. Okay? So I encourage all of you listening, if you're dating, if you're in relationships, to add this little quantifier into the discernment process of your relationship, because I think it'll bring a huge amount of clarity and a huge amount of peace in your heart when you can, along with that person, ask each other this question, because maintaining that healthy communication, that healthy relationship with each other and with God will allow you to have joy along this process instead of fear or doubt.
That's really good. I like that idea of finding joy along the process, although I have to admit that I have observed many young people and older people in the dating journey not have a whole lot of joy. And I think a lot of times it's like, I think what people commonly will say is we moved along too fast, and or whatever, our relationship developed too fast. And
right.
I think that brings into mind one of the phrases that you've shared with me, which is that dating has boxes.
So this
I would say boxes. You would say the box.
Okay, we're not the most. We're the most creative when we're with our naming conventions. Okay, so this dovetails into the other thing that I wanted to share with your listeners, and it's this life hack, right? This life hack. We just called it the box. Okay, we were the most creative when we were thinking of it. Okay, so give us a break. I'll explain it in just a minute. Okay, so first thing to understand. We have to understand the female mind, right? Now, this is gonna be mind break. This is gonna be mind blowing because no one's understood the female mind before this moment. So let's just go with me along this, okay? Now, in the movies, right? When like those romantic movies, right? When the girl first lays her eyes on this beautiful man, right? Okay, and then all she has to do is just look at him. Like, have you ever watched The Little Mermaid, right? Little Mermaid, she sees a man, doesn't talk to him, doesn't know who he is, sees a man, and she wants to leave everything behind just to go be with this guy. Okay, this is so in the movies she goes off into dreamland, right? And her mind, he picks her up and they go on dates and they fall in love and they get married, right? They dance and they have babies and they kiss, right? And then it all goes in slow motion and it's all in her head. And then there's that rude moment where her quirky best friend is like, "Hello, Earth to Sally," and it all like snaps back to reality, right? You know what I'm talking about, right? Like that's. But
I can completely relate.
Yeah, it's a real thing, guys. Trust me, guys. If you don't know this, girls do that. Like they really do this into their mind. They create this alternate reality in their mind of this. It's really an alternate reality in which all the happy things she can imagine exists, right? And honestly, guys, for you, those of you guys listening, the only reason she's in this current reality is so that she can get to that imaginary reality with all the happy things she can imagine, okay? And now girls will do this constantly. They'll do this, almost without even knowing that they do it. So now they'll think about it and, it'll be in their mind and they'll go and live in that imaginary reality, right? So here's the problem, right? Now just imagine that she's built up this whole alternate reality, and there's all these happy things that she can imagine in it, and you guys suddenly discern in your relationship that you're just not meant to be, not going to work out. We're not meant to be, right? What just happened to that imagined reality that she's created in her head?
She's in shock.
That imaginary reality just got blown to smithereens into a million different pieces, right? And who's she mad at? Yep, she's mad at you guys, right? She's mad at us, right? It's always our fault, right? So this is when the heartbreak happens, right? This is this is when the crazy comes out. This is when Taylor Swift writes a really angry song about you, okay? Okay, maybe our sound guy will get that, but whatever. Okay, now that's what happens if you let it happen. Okay, so for me, I didn't want that to happen to Ashley. We'd actually known Ashley. I'd known her since we were about 10 years old. So before she was this girl I liked, we were friends and our families were friends. So when we started dating, I wanted to protect her heart. I didn't want that heartbreak to happen in the case that we didn't work out. Like we were totally into each other, but I didn't know for sure that she was meant to be my life partner until that actually happened. Okay. So I really like this girl. Okay. So now I told you before that we told each other we liked each other, but we just weren't ready to date. And I know a lot of people think that's kind of weird, like, oh, if you like each other, you should just date. But we just weren't ready. And for I think coming out and saying that has been good for a lot of people, because a lot of people I think feel that way, but they feel pressured into dating too early, and I think that can be really harmful. So we were just friends for 2 years. And this is what we did during that period is we created this imaginary box. Okay. And we just called it the box. Okay. Now what we did is in that 2 years between when I said, hey, I really like you, and when we said, okay, well, maybe we should wait a little bit before dating, we took anything that we felt belonged in a dating relationship, and we took all those things and we just put them in the box and we just left it alone. And for 2 years, while we were just friends, we didn't touch anything that was in that dating box. Okay? And that can be whatever you choose to put in there, But for us, we didn't hold hands. We didn't kiss. We didn't go on romantic dinners, or we didn't walk on the beach together. We didn't do any of that. We didn't talk about it. We didn't talk about, hey, that restaurant would be a great place to go on a date. We just didn't do it. We left it in the box.
Was that an intentional, or was that just something that happened?
It was a little bit of both, I would say. It sort of happened organically for us, but we found out that it actually made really sense. And we would have a little, like, in that 2-year period, we would have a little, like, okay, time out, we need to talk about our relationship status thing. And so, we were 18, right? And we're like, oh, we can't really date because, we're just not ready. We're still, going to go to school and this and that. So we would have like breaks, like every 6 months we'd be like, hey, time out. Like, hey, are you still into me? Like, I'm still into you. Are you still into me? Like, yeah, we are. Okay. Well, let's keep waiting. I feel like we've done good. We've grown our faith. We've grown our friendship with each other. We're developing a really good foundation. Let's keep waiting. Let's wait another, after 6 months, another 18 months. And then okay, back to everything, put it all back in the box, leave it there. Right.
I just want to interrupt for a moment, because that takes an incredible amount of self-knowledge, like observing yourself and recognizing, like, oh, I'm moving, whether it's emotionally or physically or mentally, in towards that box and all the things in it. And yet you consciously and intentionally stopped yourselves, had a conversation, and made a decision to be disciplined, to know yourself and know each other. I find that fascinating.
Weird. Yeah, I know. Well, no, but because, see, the thing was, I wanted to protect her heart, right? Because we knew we weren't ready to date. But we didn't know for sure that we would. Like, what if in that 2-year period we decided, wait, and it was just an arbitrary, we just randomly picked 2 years. I don't know why we picked 2. It just happened to be 2 years. But I didn't know maybe my feelings would change at the end of 2 years. Maybe, maybe she would discern something else. Maybe she would find somebody else that she really liked more than me. So I didn't want to break her heart. I didn't want her heart to be like, oh, we're going to have this lovely dating relationship and then it not happen, right? I didn't want to have that unfulfilled promise, right? So I just didn't want that to happen to her. So we were pretty strict with each other. Like, she might say something like, "Ooh, what do you think about that place?" And I'd be like, Ash, I'm pretty sure that belongs in the box. And she'd be like, "Okay, sorry." Now I'll tell you, I'll share kind of a funny story with you guys. I say we didn't do any of that. There was one time, we were in school. We were so hungry. And Ash was dealing with some health things. So we had just finished studying. We'd been studying for hours. And she was starving hungry. She was like so hungry. And I was like, okay, no problem. We'll go, where do you want to go? We can go grab. We were school classmates. So we did a lot of studying and we were friends. So I was like, hey, let's go. We'll go through a drive-through, or we'll go to 7-Eleven, pick up a bite to eat. And she was like, no, she was having some health issues. And she really didn't want like fast food or anything like that. So she was like, no, I really just want like real food. Now, we didn't hang out anywhere alone together. We were always in public. So I was like, oh, well, can we go over to your mom and dad's house? And she was like, no one's there. And I was like, okay, well, that's out, because we can't be at her house alone together, because that's like dating stuff, right? Okay. So we went out to dinner, and we went out to this Italian restaurant. I don't know if you guys remember the old spaghetti factory. And honestly, it was so weird. It was so awkward, because we walked in, we were hungry, we were starving. We were like, let's just go have dinner. I told her, it's fine, don't worry about it. We'll just go have dinner. It was so awkward, because we were like, this is like a dating thing. And it felt so wrong to us, because we were not dating. So like, it was honestly so uncomfortable. We just didn't care. We were so hungry. But like, I didn't order her food. Like, I made her order her own food. And like, I didn't even, like, they had a Pac-Man machine in there. I didn't play the Pac-Man. I didn't challenge her to the Pac-Man thing, because I was like, that's a dating thing. So that was the one time we did anything that we felt went into the box.
Because you were breaking your own rules, and
exactly.
These rules, they were like the foundation of your
exactly,
friendship.
And we had a lot of respect for each other.
It sounds like,
there.
you're just hungry and blah blah blah. That's a technicality, but no, like, I completely understand that.
Yeah.
You, like, it was good that you didn't do that on purpose, but you were like on a very uncomfortable place. For you, even though like from outside it's just two people eating because they are hungry, but I completely get it. And I think that's what being, I cannot think of the word right now, but just to keep on your promises,
that integrity, right?
That
integrity.
Having integrity on your values and your the rules that, maybe not rules because that sounds like too hard, but I
just
think
kind of like the
yeah.
agreement that we had within each other, that kind of understanding of like, hey, we were in a sense saving that,
Yeah, and I think for the ones listening, I think like these small things are like good tips. Like if you have your own agreements, keep them. Even don't think of the voices outside.
Right.
Also, those voices, they should go on another box, like
A trash box, yeah.
yeah, because probably like you heard like friends or on TV or music that were saying other things against what you had the agreement to. So all of that, put it in another box, and just ignore it. Don't let these ideas impact your what you agreed on.
Right. Yeah. So so here's what happened to the box. Now after the 2 years of waiting, we were best friends by then. We're really into each other. So we discerned it was time to date. So we started dating, and then we got to experience the joy of opening up that dating box and taking those things that we had left in that box on purpose and take them out one by one, and we'd kind of saved it for each other. Now, the great thing about that box is, if at the end of that 2-year period we said, I'm not really into you, I don't really think I'm led to dating you, she could take that box and bring that into her next relationship. I could take that box and bring it into my next relationship. And I could, potentially, enjoy opening that box with the right person, right? For us, we dated and we got to enjoy those things in that box. And it was so, like, the first time we went on our first like official fancy dinner date, we were so excited. And we're like, remember when we went to Spaghetti House? That was so weird. Right now, this is real. And it didn't feel like it was our second first date. It felt like our first date because we had that intentionality behind it. Now, guess what? The box, it suddenly had like a new job, because we were taking all the fun dating stuff out. We were going on romantic walks on the beach and, going out holding hands and all that stuff. Now the box, it had a new job, because even though we were dating, there were other things that we believed, belonged to a couple, but not a dating relationship. So we thought, maybe there's things that belong to an engaged relationship. So the dating box became the engaged box. Now that was a little bit smaller box because, like I said, we were only engaged for 8 months. But I think you guys can kind of see where this is going. While we were dating, anything that we thought we belonged to an engaged couple, we left in the engaged box, and we didn't touch it as a dating couple.
That's why you call it the box.
That's why we call it the box, because it's just an imaginary box.
You just changed the label on the box.
Yeah, we just gave it a new label. We gave it a new job. And then, when I finally proposed to her and we were engaged, we got to take out all the fun engagement stuff, like, oh, what colors do you want for your wedding, or how many people, or what kind of food do you want for your wedding, or those kinds of things. That stuff, to us, that stuff belonged to someone who was engaged. It didn't belong to people who were dating. Dating, we're still trying to figure out if this was the life partnership God wanted for us. We need to stay focused on that, not be distracted by if we're going to wear mauve or navy or whatever, So and then while we were engaged, there were things that we were like, oh, there's things that definitely belong in the marriage box for us. Okay, so let's leave those things in there until we're married, and we're married. Now, we had those timeout periods, right? Like, we have to talk about what married life would be like if we're discerning marriage, right? So we had those timeout periods, but we didn't linger on them. We had those conversations, like those important things like finances and kids and family, and those things that are important to talk about as you're discerning a life partnership with someone. But we had those timeout sessions, and then we put them back in the box and we left them there. We didn't linger on them. And it allowed us to grow at the stage we were growing, and we didn't end up moving too fast, in a sense. I know you mentioned that. Like, a lot of couples feel like things just move along so fast. And I feel like just having these boxes and talking about it with your partner allows you guys to be on the same page with how fast your relationship can and should be moving, And for us, we had a relatively short, engagement and dating process. But I think it's because we had these boxes that kind of kept us on track, and we didn't get lost in talking about things or developing relationship in areas that we shouldn't be.
So I'm just kind of curious, from a male-female perspective, did both of you equally help each other keep things in the box that maybe you leaned toward, or do you think you as the guy held that framework a little bit more strictly?
I think at first it was more me that did a lot of the I don't want to call it policing, but a lot of that. Hey, maybe we should leave those things in the box. I think I did it the most at first. Like I think I really took hold of that because, again, like I said, I wanted to protect her heart so bad. She was, a childhood friend. I cared about her. I loved her family. I didn't want her family to be mad at my family if I broke her heart, right? So, so there's those things that I really took very seriously. And I wanted to be that guy that, she could, even if we didn't work out, I wanted her to be able to say, hey, Brian's a great guy, to whatever girl I ended up with. I wanted her to be able to say that.
That's very huge.
And as time went on, she, wanted to take up more responsibility in that area too. So she said, Brian's done this for me a lot. She said, Brian has protected my heart in these ways, and he's stopped us from talking about these fun things that I really want to talk about, but it's protected my heart, and it's kept my head on straight, and it's kept us from developing a relationship in a direction we don't want it to go yet. So she, took up kind of the same mantle as me. And, when I would want to do or say things or go places, she'd be like, maybe we should wait for that. Maybe that's something that goes in the box. And I'd be like, yeah, you're right. It'd be really fun though. So I think initially it was me that kind of held the reins, but it was something we both invested in equally, I believe.
Wow. It just demonstrates your intentionality, but it also demonstrates the end goal, which is to protect each other's heart. That's powerful.
Yes, and also something that I'm thinking is that about timing, because society and also our imagination we want that everything moves fast, like social network, everything is fast.
The instant gratification society.
Yeah, so it's hard for us to just think that, we can wait for a couple of months or years to go after this dream. But it's okay. Even like if you pray about it and God tells you wait, then you should be at peace on the waiting, because of course God wants the best for you. He knows your heart, and you can be very comfortable and very happy and joyful in this waiting process. But sometimes we don't know that. We think, okay, if I am not at I'm in point 8, and I'm not at my point B, I'm not happy. I'm just like suffering on the road. But I think something really nice that I heard this morning, it was like, enjoy your day, be grateful for, just enjoy your day, even enjoy the parts that are difficult and that are not nice. And I think like, as you were saying, we are like trained to just, everything has to be happiness and love story and like that. But sometimes just enjoy your day and enjoy the people around you and the process, the good and the bad. And I think that that's also help not for us to be so frustrated, right? I think like that's a trick. And it's so beautiful that you're learning, you're sharing this, that it's okay to wait. It's okay that time passes by. Just keep on, enjoying life, loving, and of course praying.
Yeah, thank you. I'm not judging anyone. Everyone has their own story, but I feel that a lot of the reasons why couples, especially nowadays, have a lot of frustration is because they haven't put things into these boxes to save for later. Like I know a lot of young women, and they're dating, good guys, and they're like waiting for him to propose. They're waiting because they want to get married, but in their relationships, they've already opened everything in the engaged box and the marriage box. So they're like, babe, when are you going to propose? And he's like, why would I do that? We already opened the marriage box. We already took everything out of there. There's nothing there.
Wow, that makes so much sense.
Why would I want to go through all the work to propose to you and get married to you if you already opened up the box? We didn't save it. There was nothing left in there. So there's a lot of frustration on both sides, I believe, because there isn't that joyful anticipation of what's in the next box. There isn't that joyful gift of, hey, I'm going to give you the gift of not opening this box until you're ready. And that became such a joy to me, you know, as me and Ashley moved through the stages of our relationship. And even now, like we just got to open up a wonderful new box of being new parents, right?
Baby
and
box.
that was the baby box, you know, and that's been so fun. And, you know, we did talk about it a little bit, you know, while we were married, but, you know, now that we actually have our first baby, it's like, what are the things we want to do? We want to do baby photo shoots, and we want to show her off to all the grandparents, right? But those things we've saved, and now now there's a new box, and we're like, oh, what's in the box now? It's like, well, the next box is having 2 kids, right? You know, and what's that going to be like? And
Baby too.
you know, you get 2 kids, and like, oh, maybe you need a bigger car, and maybe you need those things. We have those discussions, and we get to save those bits of our relationship. So I really encourage, you know, those of you listening and those of you dating, and it doesn't matter where you're in at your date, in your relationship, you can start this now. You can start this now. It doesn't matter how long you've been together. You can start this right now and suddenly have a gift to give to that person that you care about so much. And it can be it can be such a joyful, I mean, to me, like I say self-sacrifice, but it almost wasn't a sacrifice. It was like I did it more for me than for her some days, you know, because I wanted to see the joy in her eyes when we finally brought out something new from this next box, you know. And I think if you love the girl and she loves you, then I think you should want that for that person, you know. And I don't think it's as hard as people make it sound, you know.
No, it's really quite beautiful, and from my perspective, it was beautiful to watch.
Thanks, Mom.
In Hamau Iloko, our vision is to uphold human dignity and build a culture of family. And in our mission, we like to equip our students and our audience. And I feel like today, Bryan Keahi, you have equipped our audience with some practical steps just so perfectly. It's really wonderful. One of the things I enjoyed most about listening to was your intentionality of your mindset. And it sort of wraps itself around the 2 primary questions of theology of the body. The heart of theology of the body are these 2 questions. What does it mean to be human? And how can I live my life in such a way so as to find happiness? Mm-hmm. Pope John Paul II invites us to discover that the answer to those 2 questions is actually the same answer, which is to give the gift of yourself to the other. And I feel like your story just totally demonstrates that. And I'm not crying.
I thought that I was the only one about to cry.
Mm-hmm. But it speaks to the language of the body, right? How the body can demonstrate these concepts on paper. And I like the language of the body because, as Christopher West says when he teaches, our bodies don't make sense by themselves. But seen in light of each other, we go together. We are made for communion. It's intentional in design. It's implicit when you look at each of our bodies that we are invited to give ourselves to another. And it's such an intimate giving, but it's not only in the body, right? We can give our hearts by a look. We can give our spirit by offering our ears and our shoulder, right? We can give to each other in those simple ways that are profound, but they are the gift. And I feel like every time you open the box, you kept talking about the gift and the joy of finding what was in there. And a gift box. Anyway, yeah, that was just so awesome. But you know, when you were talking about success and you were talking about how sometimes you discern, you heard in your heart somewhere that person is not meant to be my life partner. And when you know that, when you've heard that voice inside, that music within, that is successful too. Now, communicating that to the other person maybe is difficult and painful, but it is speaking a truth that you know is being spoken inside your very being. That music within you to know that this person is not for me is just as beautiful. Being able to communicate that can also be terrifying, but when you finally do, because you're listening to the music within, that voice within, and you're being true to yourself, and you have to, sever the relationship, but still, you can still be friends. You can still know that that was a successful relationship, even though you know you're not each other's life partner. Like, I find that very profound, but I find that it's an invitation to listen to that music within, to communicate that truth that we know is inside, because when we communicate that truth, we are upholding our own dignity as well as the dignity of that other person. It is such a grace and a beauty for God to just allow us to go along this path and discover what his plans are for us. And I kind of want to hear a little bit more from Bryan, not only for your sake, the audience, but for me. Like, I want to hear their story. Even though him growing up, I watched it, I observed it, and I was in absolute awe. Because Bryan just held this framework so beautifully, and I saw Ashley, the girl, benefit from it, and it was really awesome. And so next session, we are actually going to have Ashley join us for the conversation.
Wow.
And we're going to continue to hear them tell their stories about the tools they used to be intentional, maybe some rough patches that they hit, and some special moments where Bryan really and truly upheld her dignity. It's a great story, so stay tuned for next time. Any last minute thoughts, Hime?
Well, no, just thank you for coming and sharing your story, and I bet that everyone listening is getting a lot from this. And I wanted to emphasize something you said, that each person's story is different. Like, sometimes it can go fast and it's fine, and sometimes it can go very slow and it's fine. But as Miley always says, just listen to the voice within, put it in prayer, and also get informed, like with this podcast or other sources.
Yeah, thanks, Hime. Thanks, Bryan.
Yeah, I just want to say thanks for having me on. It's a great show, and I'm excited for where the show is going. I hope that, for you guys listening, I hope that, something I said resonated with you. I hope that the music within resonates with you. And yeah, definitely, I'm excited for next time. Tune in. I'm sure I got a few things wrong, so the wife will set me straight on that one, I'm sure. I know, maybe spoilers for next time, but we're not going to be talking about this exact same thing. We'll have some crossover, but we've got some great things that we are excited to share with you guys. So tune in next time, and we'll have more funny stories for you guys.
Total teaser. That sounds great. It's been a great morning. Thank you so much for tuning in to our podcast. We welcome you to listen to our other shows. They're all accessible on our website, hamauiloko.org. You'll find the podcast, some other video podcasts. You'll find a way to support our ministry. We take donations via PayPal, Venmo, and Zelle. And of course, you can request our services and our classes. This is a closeout for today. Thanks for joining us. I am Majesty Domingo, and this is The Music Within.